Hi, this is another in our series of Meet a Palm, or sometimes I think about maybe it's Meet a Finger at the end of the palm. But today I've got with me in the office Kevin Wilson.
Yes,
Kevin's Kevin's a very engaged palm. I want to talk to him today in particular about his placements because he's done two, and there's something of variety in that and that might be useful for you to understand. So without any further ado, Kevin Wilson, thanks for being available today.
Oh, well, thank you, Roger. It's always a pleasure actually doing something for palms.
Good. Okay. Well, look, you can tell us about your placements. First, you went to Papua New Guinea, or to Bougainville, as a kind of it's part of Papua New Guinea.
Region.
Yeah, an autonomous region as it is at the moment, and looking for independence. But and then you went to Timor Leste, and you can compare and contrast if you like. But you went primarily with the what skills?
Mostly a background in a combination of IT, bookkeeping, a bit of accounts, and general office management. On the whole, business and clerical skills, you could call it.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and it was came from a probably spending too long at a large IT company where I engaged with probably at least 200 staff every day.
Okay.
And fulfilled their needs, and I had been the go-to person for a very long time.
Stressful?
Yes.
Okay. In an emerging kind of IT climate at that time, I imagine. What years was
at
that?
the time? Yeah, it was between 1989 and then 2008, as it turned out.
So IT is starting to take hold in commercial businesses and places of office spaces and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, so you took these skills to Papua New Guinea first of all. Why did they want them? I mean, they made a request to us for someone like you, and fortunately you stepped up. But when you got there, what was it that you found that they really wanted?
Well, I think they really wanted somebody to help coordinate. Where I was Tanania Open Learning Centre,
Right.
which is in a small, relatively isolated part of Bougainville, about 2 hours south of Varawa, generally considered the main capital. It was a school specifically set up to address an education gap left by the Bougainville crisis. So quite early during that civil war, the Papua New Guinea government services were withdrawn from the island, and eventually a blockade was placed over the whole island as the crisis ensued.
So this is why you're there, or before you?
Well, this was the need.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Okay.
So a couple, Sam and Josie Kona, had started this education centre to address a gap which was left by the crisis in education. Specifically, that there had been a generation of people who had didn't receive any formal education, and after the peace process had begun, the crisis more or less ended. Some services were brought back into the island. However,
From Papua New Guinea mainland.
Yeah, such as so government high schools, primary schools were
Right.
reopened, yet there was nothing for this generation which had missed out.
Yeah.
So people who had perhaps been in primary school or even high school at the beginning of the crisis were suddenly brought out. Many of them became, soldiers themselves.
So almost child soldiers, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. We had someone else in another placement too in Bougainville, trying to address that gap as well. So what did you actually do there then?
Okay, so at the centre, I did mostly the administration for the centre, which ran several courses of both literacy and numeracy, but also life skills, almost as a vocational centre. So skills such as agriculture, carpentry, embroideries, etc. And yeah, what they would call life skills.
Yeah, so things that were building up the opportunities for these people to have something that would perhaps earn them an income at some point, or simply give them the opportunity to grow their own foods and do it more effectively
That's
than they may have done
yes.
before. And without having been sort of soldiers, they didn't learn much other than shooting and other things that weren't really going to help them.
Yeah, and so a key part of that was also rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Of quite a lot of men who were in their 20s and 30s had been child soldiers and relatively traumatised by that.
So the training was managed by the Bougainvilleans.
Yes.
And
completely,
you were helping to keep their organisation afloat, making sure there were funds coming in, going out, and an ability to run it.
A lot of it was a lot of my, I guess, working at a laptop skills would be making applications for funding from various foundations, NGOs, some government grants within coming both through the PNG system but also through the autonomous Bougainville governance system.
Yeah. So you created this helped create self-sufficiency in Bougainville and sustainability for Bougainville. Were you mentoring as well, or having anyone working alongside you?
Several people to be mentored. One was a great local teacher, Maylene Ramanji, who because of course many of the teachers for the centre were brought from the community themselves. They'd done some I guess some basic teacher training,
right,
and which of course both the autonomous government and to an extent the PNG national government had sponsored.
Okay.
And this was particularly a great form of teacher training for that village context as well. Because what I might add is that it was a very rural and village-based.
It's pretty isolated.
Yes.
So that goes to Palm's model of kind of getting to grassroots communities in more remote and regional areas where people don't have opportunities largely that they do in the urban centres.
Yes, that's true, and it also meant the isolation meant at least when we say isolation from a lot of infrastructure and certainly from a lot of expats. Very few expats.
So you were the only expat for miles around.
Yes, for miles around, and it was quite a few weeks before I realised that even in Arawa there were some expats, but mostly New Zealanders there.
Okay.
But at any one time, I think there was only about 20 odd Westerners in the whole of the island.
Okay.
So it was quite a very, very deep cultural immersion and very swift.
Yes.
And it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I mean, certain people are built for that, and others are not. And I guess we hope people choose to take on what they can manage in this regard. Clearly, you were able to manage that.
I say it was wonderful, but looking back, I can't say it was actually easy at the time.
Okay. Well, what were some of the greatest experiences you had there?
Very difficult. I think some of the greatest experiences was those times when I felt most engaged and most a part of the community.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting to have a compliment from Sam Kona, who had some experience of a lot of different expats and people he parted with. He had been trained while he was a cadet in the PNG Army. Did complete his training in Australia. He actually told me that he's never known anyone outside of non-Bougainvillean to live so much at their level, and I thought that was just an amazing compliment.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything better to say to a Palms participant, really. So I'm sure there's many other Palms people who've had similar experiences.
Yeah. And yet you can't, as we call it, go native you can't kind of become a Bougainvillean. You are not of their culture. You're of a different culture. So, how do you accommodate kind of living there in another culture like that? How hard was that? Were there challenges? What were the challenges?
Biggest challenge, probably language was quite a challenge. I'm not a natural linguist, but I although am very interested in linguistic subjects.
Yeah.
I think initially the isolation was enormous, but I'd say the palms preparation really assisted because at the time you think yes, and whichever points we had the preparation of the bell curve
Yes.
of culture shock.
Yes.
And I think, okay, well, I think I'm there. I think I'm there, or am I a bit more like the Nasdaq rather than the best? I think, missing the family was at least in the first couple of weeks was probably much harder than I ever expected.
I mean, everybody has a little bit of homesickness.
Yes.
Yeah. So you brought along something. We asked you to bring along something from each of the places that you were at. What is it, and what does it mean much to you?
Okay, well, one is this is the set of panpipes. Of course, I call it the Covey Belong David. The reason I call it that is this was given to me by David Dapple, who's the chief of Isana, and he would often. He would be a regular at Tanania, and I would often stay weekends there. I mean, I should add that on weekends, many of the community would go back to their own villages, and sometimes I'd be there on my own, sometimes I'd travel with them. But there'd be enough weekends when it might have been just myself and David. David would tend to bring his own set of panpipes around, and he'd just be playing to himself and also accompanying that with his own singing. I'm not quite sure how he did a song at the same time.
Singing and blowing.
But he did it so well, and he obviously noted how much I appreciated his pipes, and so he made this set for me. A humorous anecdote about them is I did ask the community, what is it you call these? And their response to me was in perfect English, panpipes.
You wanted to know.
And I had to clarify what
name.
was the
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Do you remember that?
I don't want to talk place belong here. So it is actually Covey.
Covey.
Okay. So K-O-V-I,
Not like COVID.
No, not like COVID. I thought today that might.
Yes. Yeah.
So Covey Belong David
Right.
of these, and it was just such a joy. And of course, when we look at panpipes, we can see the ancestor of the pipe organ, of course, and so it is one of those very universal instruments throughout the world, and so it's just such a thrill to. Still have this in such great condition because they do tend to deteriorate quite.
And having someone do that for you, I mean, it's great connection indicated through that. I mean, there's great appreciation, and it speaks to building relationships, which are so important to engaging and enabling you to pass on any skills and share ideas. People feeling that you're connected. So that clearly you did. You were there 2 years, right?
Yes. Yes. Once again, those relationships are really the great highlight, and then any individual highlights all come back to that theme of being so engaged and feeling so much a part of the people.
Yeah, and I think they appreciate that too. I mean, we've had communities say to us, look, the skills are great, and it's great to get those skills, and it does give us some self-reliance and ability to sustainably develop. But more important to us is the connection that we get to people who come here from another place and broaden our view of the world, and I think obviously the person who goes there gets the same mutual effect, development. So you came home for how long?
I was home for about something like 18 months after Bougainville.
And then somehow we convinced you to go to East Timor.
Yes, it was. And I remember it was. I'd after coming back, I quickly found work again. Because there seemed to be several contacts I'd left behind before, but I had been working for some time, and I think it was actually in a roundabout way. I'd recommended that a friend apply for a job in the Palms office
Okay.
at the time, and I came in. When that friend didn't, I thought I'd apply myself.
Ah.
I didn't get the job that time, but however, which was okay. Then it, I learnt during that visit of some other needs in Timor-Leste, and so
That's how that came about.
Yeah, it came about.
So you went to Maliana to do what there?
Maliana to assist a local Timorese NGO, OHM, which is Hay is actually what we call H, Organisation Haboras Morris, meaning organisation, of course, and to promote life.
Right. That's a
Yes.
wonderful name.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, they, of course, I often thought of them as something of a mini Palms,
Okay.
because their role was to send their own people into surrounding villages.
Yeah.
So basically into communities which, of course, are part of their culture, but are different communities to their own, and to assist those communities.
Mhm.
And it would mean their staff actually spending some time in those particular
So to
villages,
build what
learning-
organisational capacity in those
yeah, building
communities.
organisational capacity. A community would have some ideas about particularly income generation projects,
Yeah.
how they could sell their produce, or develop some agricultural ideas, or to sell perhaps their handicrafts, such as the ties fabric,
Yeah.
which is a major thing. And probably
And you got something
very
here. Is
useful.
that something they also made in different
It's
communities?
of course,
or?
yes, they did. Generally, it's made as a decoration. I often would use it as a Christmas decoration.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of the artifacts, souvenirs, if you like, that I collected in Timor, I had to leave behind because my exit was somewhat rushed. But I did manage to get this one.
Yeah. Right.
It's something. I suppose we often see raffia woven birds and stars, which several restaurants even here I've sometimes
seen,
seen
yeah.
now. It's something that to me at the time was relatively new, but I'm
Yeah.
glad to see it's caught on.
Yeah.
And
And they're so fast with the weaving and things. You just
Yes.
sort of put them
It's,
made. I guess
just,
they're well practiced.
I think it's something that they couldn't do slowly now.
Yeah,
It's just,
find it
and-
hard to show you how to do it because it's
yes. So that's
That's
do
great.
something. It now, in fact, decorates the Palms office. Which
Yes,
is very good.
indeed it does.
Yeah.
So what were the greatest challenges there in Timor-Leste in Mariana?
It was probably it's quite a different challenge. I think after Bougainville, I think initially there was quite an amusing problem I had, particularly with language, because I would see people who were very Melanesian in appearance,
Yeah.
and also there was a tendency of certain simplified forms of English to be spoken there, which sound very much like talk prison. And whenever I saw some of these people, I would revert into the talk prison language,
Yeah.
and I soon put a conscious stop to that. I think
Because they didn't know the hell what you're talking about.
yeah, they didn't know what the hell. And I remember once responding to one local lad. He says, "Bon dia," good morning. Good day actually, but it's generally just used in the morning. Bon
Yeah.
dia. And
Portuguese based.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and I would say, normally it would be Bon dia, Diakalai, but I said Bon dia, Arake. Suddenly my Nasioi, which is the Bougainvillean local language I was using, had come out. It means the same thing, but to see the look on his face, he's obviously been used to, the Malay foreigners in Timor-Leste using Portuguese or using English or using very bad Teton, and then there's this strange language that is completely flooring. But that actually happened after a couple of months. The funny language was a bit of a tougher barrier because there wasn't. Talk-Pisin is something relatively easy to take up while you're in PNG or Bougainville or indeed Solomons. It appears sometimes that English is widely used in Timor-Leste, but that really isn't the case. And so until you start to use Teton, you're going to find life quite frustrating. Probably the major contrast for me in an emotional sense or cultural sense between Timor-Leste and Bougainville was in Timor-Leste there was a much higher expat community. Many more, certainly a cluster of Palms volunteers, but also volunteers from AVI, of course, some from World Vision, from various other places, I guess, within the Anglosphere. And so I found, I suppose I had a bit of reverse culture shock because while I was used to being very engaged in the community in Bougainville, here I was being part of this expat. And in some ways, I don't want to sound too judgmental, but sometimes a rather cliquey community.
People flock to their own and then kind of don't get out of it as easily as when you're more isolated in the local community.
And the other, I guess, the other barrier in a way to deeper cultural engagement is like the village life or even town life like Maliana is that every family has their own house and rather self-contained there. While in Bougainville, it was a village life. We might have a hut or room arrangement where we'd sleep, but everything else was done together. There was a common kitchen. Outside, the house cook, everyone would cook together, everyone would eat together, and so that's and it's
so you get a greater sense of community, really engaged together with people in that in that environment. I think mine was similar, even though I was in a compound. There were times where we cooked together, etc. But it was indeed, as you say, an more Anglo community in a compound. So that's an aspect of life though that you don't have here in Australia very much. You have the broader community. You might go to your workplace, you've got community there, and in your church you've got community there, or you've got local government kind of local activities. But you very much have you're very self-sufficient in your own space at home. That they're saying in Bougainville wasn't quite the case. You just had somewhere to sleep, but otherwise you were engaged with the community. Right there with them.
So it's like a village it's an extended family there, and you're a part of it.
Learning that sense of community is great. You get a great feeling from it. It's very exciting. So, out of all of it, what would you recommend to people thinking about doing this? What would you say? What is it? Is it kind of 50-50? I'm not really sure, or was it life changing, or was it what is it?
I'd say whether it's life changing or life enriching. I'd say changing would have to be the true word, because you have to. Whether you're open to the change or not, the change is going to happen. So you may as well be open to it. I think there were values I had or things I believed in theory, which were greatly affirmed by the experience. and would they have been affirmed without the experience? Maybe not. I'd probably still have those values, but I probably wouldn't be as passionate about them as I am now.
Okay. Things like solidarity and
solidarity,
justice,
the sense of a global family.
Yep.
These are things that have really
were deepened in the experiences.
Yes, yeah. Completely deepened out, and you know, I would defend it, and it's funny in this time of various forms of truths on social media, etc., and just seeing some way my former colleagues and the way they engage with those things, and without having had this experience, and I think they're probably a little more inclined to sometimes listen a bit more when they hear me speak on a certain issue now because of that. I didn't want to really feel like I'd be the know-all, but
no. But with the broader experience, I mean, not many people have it, I suppose, and that it can be quite unique. So it's a voice worth hearing, I think, and that's just one of the things with Palms, of course, you're well aware we want to have happen. We want people sort of to go away as pilgrims, but kind of return as prophets, people who can talk to their community about what maybe some of the options are that they haven't experienced themselves. So, yeah. Okay, Kevin, thanks for your time today. I'm sure there's many more things you could say.
Probably.
And
I think we
expand
just
on.
touched on.
Well, we have just touched on them, but I mean, obviously, if you're thinking about this, here's some great example of what you can gain from it, and Kevin is available in our office, so we can get you to talk to him some more when you make your application. After you make your application, we put you in touch with people who have been to various places that you might think about going to, or done particular sorts of work that you might think about doing. Thanks again, Kevin.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.